In what ways is your media product used to develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? My media product uses, develops and challenges the conventions of real media products through the use of the fantasy genre. In order to establish this genre effectively, I knew that within my media product I needed to introduce that element of fantasy through either the mise-en-scène or the performance. Therefore, I decided to use both. Firstly, by capturing a shot of the notebook that my character Ella had written in that explained that everything that she dreamt came to life. Then, within the dream sequences, the explanation of the locket also emphasised the fantasy effect, as these attributes all tied in with one another, depicting to the audience that because Ella is dreaming about the locket, this then reflects back to the notebook, where she tells the audience that whatever she dreams comes to life, therefore showing that something bad is going to happen, and this is then the beginning of the unravelling of the narrative for the film to follow. Already this has represented a fantasy genre, as the fact alone that whatever she dreams happens will be classed as a fantasy, as it isn't actually reality. When preparing and planning for my media product, I initially knew that I wanted to create a fantasy film, as everyone else will go with the typical horror or thriller genres. Although in my first rough cut, where I created Behind You, I myself tried to go along with what everyone else was creating. I then realised that after having the feedback from my teachers, that by sticking with my original idea of a fantasy would be more beneficial for myself, especially as I was working on my own. Therefore, I began to watch and look at popular fantasy films such as Labyrinth, Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and in some respects, Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates of the Caribbean influenced me the most, I feel, as the opening to the film is a dream sequence, and ends with Elizabeth Swann waking up. Nevertheless, as Elizabeth Swann is a young woman, I decided to challenge that attribute and have a young innocent girl as the lead protagonist instead of a young adult.
It's okay. My name's Elizabeth Swann.
Will Turner.
I'm watching over you, Will. You're a pirate.
Has he said anything?
His name's William Turner. That's all I found out.
Take him below.
How does your media product represent particular social groups? I would say that my media product represents the social aspect of the innocence of children. With my character only being 7 years old and finding herself with a supernatural talent would show the innocence of her, especially as she is unaware as to why she has this gift. I found myself quite lucky in some respects, because the room that I have captured in my final product is in reality the actress's bedroom. When I first saw it and saw the paintings on the wall, my initial thought was this was a typical setting for a fantasy film. Not only does this reflect the fantasy genre, but also it shows the young age of Ella, and she has all the stereotypical young girl toys and pictures that I was able to capture, along with the paintings on the wall that reflect everything that I was initially desiring to present within my final product. The fact that I have also entitled my film Dream Ella is important, as at 7 years old, little girls are still dreaming of becoming a fairy princess, or to live in a big castle because of all the fairy tales that they're told. So, by calling it Dream Ella, it's telling my character to dream. Although, another reason for calling it this is because of the fact that whatever she dreams actually happens. In this respect, it is almost as if it is telling Ella to dream something good rather than bad, whereas in my film opening I have shown that she's dreamt something bad, and therefore this is how the narrative will play out.
Mom!
What kind of media institution might distribute your media product and why? I began to research into different fantasy films and found that the most suitable and the most common distributor for my film would be Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers was founded in 1923 and was founded by the four brothers Harry, Albert, Sam and Jack. The company has since gone on to distribute big fantasy films such as the Harry Potter series and Pan's Labyrinth. After seeing the success of both of these big fantasy films and noticing that they have the same target audience as my own, I decided that Warner Brothers would be the best production company to produce my media product. Who would be the audience for your media product? The audience for my media product would be teenagers to young adults. This is because my film is a darkened fantasy in contrast to the childlike fantasy. After I'd created my final media product, I uploaded it to my Facebook account and asked people to comment on it, giving me feedback on it. I found that it was mostly older teenagers at the ages 16 to 18 and young adults in their 20s that commented on it, telling me that they liked it. This confirmed who my target audience was, and therefore made me decide that if I was to produce my film, I would give it the certificate of a 15. How do you attract and address your audience? I feel that I've attracted my audience with a strong sense of mise-en-scène within my film, as it really reflects the fantasy genre. I also think that I've attracted them through my film title, Dream, Ella, as having the comma in between these two words shows that it is a command that Ella has to dream somewhere within the narrative. This then links back to the fantasy genre, as it leaves a sense of mystery and also wonder as to what Ella will have to dream about and why. I have also used the full stop within the film title to show that this is a harsh command that Ella must dream, making it seem as though she has no choice. This then will lead a stronger sense of curiosity for the rest of the film to follow. Moreover, I have also used a majority of my shots as point of view shots, as this again creates a greater sense of fantasy and also gives a greater sense of mystery.
Excuse me, sir, do you have an invitation? Excuse me.
Kirby, how are you?
What have you learnt about technologies from the process of constructing this product? Throughout the whole process of planning, filming and editing my final opening, I worked independently, and feel that I have benefited greatly from this, as I was able to learn for myself all of the different roles and aspects, as I didn't have to rely on anyone else and was able to work off my own thoughts and ideas. Moreover, the fact that I had never really used a Mac before, especially iMovie, was a complication to begin with, as I had to figure out for myself how to edit my footage and add sound effects and different kind of effects that would create the fantasy genre. At first, this proved quite difficult, and I began to feel the stress from working independently. But after finally producing my final product, I can see how working independently has not only benefited my work, but also myself, as I was able to create exactly what I imagined on my own. Looking back at your preliminary task, what do you feel you have learnt in the progression from it to your full product? When creating my preliminary task, I was in a group with 3 others, meaning that I didn't get to explore the other roles as much, as we took on a role each. Although at the time this seemed like a good idea, I realise now that I would have enjoyed exploring the other roles more, and for us all to have swapped every now and again, as this would have prepared me for independent working. Also, when creating our preliminary task, we didn't have a great knowledge of filming or editing properly. Although I had had some experience and knowledge of filming and editing before, it wasn't to the standard of what it is now. And by having worked independently, I feel I have benefited from this aspect, and by looking back at my preliminary task to my final opening, I can see a great contrast between the both of them.